Hello, everyone. Welcome to Around Town TV. My name is Carla Berlin, and I'm thrilled to have back with us tonight from the Crisis Files, Roshini Rajkumar. Thank you for being back with us, Roshini.
It's great to be with you again, Carla.
And
Thank
did I
you.
say your last name correct?
You
Oh,
did.
okay, good. Good, good, good. I am so thankful that you're back because tonight's topic, everyone, it affects all of us. Every one of us is born and every one of us dies. And Rashini is going to tell us a little bit about the background of her podcast, but they just dropped yesterday podcast number 33, Death Does Not Become Us. We're going to get into that. Rashini, would you give us a little kind of back history on your podcast so those who may not have listened to it yet understands what you're doing?
Sure. And we love to have you as a listener to the Crisis Files, which you can find on all the major podcast platforms. You can also find it on thecrisisfiles.com. We launched our podcast, which is weekly, back in August of 2022. And we cover a lot of different kinds of topics, all with the theme and the intention of trying to help you prevent crisis in your own life. So sometimes we'll take a crisis that's ripped from the headline, that we rip from the headlines, I guess, and we dive into it. And when I say we, I'm talking about myself. I am a crisis strategist and executive coach. I'm a past television broadcaster and investigative journalist. So I bring a lot of that into the work I do as an executive coach. But into these case files, my crisis squad also adds their expertise. And my crisis squad is specifically for different people from their subject matter areas. And where their subject matter isn't necessarily the focus, I have other guests who come in who are newsmakers, thought leaders, you name it. We've got some wonderful regular contributors in the wellness space, the film and movie space, the real estate space. So, for example, case file number 25, racism in real estate. We spoke to a Minneapolis area realtor and board member of the Minneapolis area realtors and how they're doing some things at the local level, which are getting adopted nationally to prevent racism in real estate. So, really interesting topics that we look into to try to enlighten and hopefully prevent crises for people.
Well, not only prevent, but your topics seem to be relevant to just about everybody, especially the one that just dropped, which we'll get into in a moment. The other thing that I appreciate is it's not only the who's who that you get involved with, you get the experts. You get the best of the best when it is a specific topic, from real estate to attorneys to whatever the topic may be. I mean, we're on number 33, and I just think of the various ones. For those who maybe haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast that dropped yesterday, let's talk about who you interviewed, and then we'll transition that into, of course, the whole death does not become us, and people not being prepared, and get into that after that.
All right, so case file number 33 is our latest. It dropped on March 6th. And in that case file, Death Does Not Become Us, I was able to chat with Pat Miles. And Pat Miles has been a widow for 4 years. She's at least in the Minneapolis area, a television icon. She was on WCCO TV and Care 11 TV as an anchor. She was very high profile. Many people, including myself, kind of grew up watching her in our younger days in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And she ended up marrying and in her second husband later in her life, but they had many years together. And he was diagnosed only 3 months before he passed.
Wow.
Of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, if I'm remembering that correctly. And they really were working for the miracle. So they spent a lot of time trying to save him, find a miracle. And instead, as Pat will tell you in her book, Before All Is Said and Done, she really wishes they had spent more time in enjoying with each other, reflecting with each other those last few months of his life. But sadly, her lessons have come out to really give a gift to the world in the form of her book, because you don't have to be a widow or a widower to learn from this book. Any one of us, every one of us, will one day face our own demise as well as the loss of loved ones. And frankly, I'm more concerned and probably more concerned about my loved ones passing than even myself. But there are so many things we have to do individually to prevent pain for our loved ones when it comes to our own demise. So Pat, in a very thoughtful and truly investigative reporter, I mean, she researched this for 2 years and wrote this book, and it's so well written. It reads like a novel. It is so easy to read, Carla. I recommend it to everyone. In fact, I've told her I'm going to make it part of my goal to get word out about this book. The case file itself goes beyond only talking about the book. We talk about these issues that no one really wants to deal with. And, you know, I can tell you personally, I'm a licensed attorney. My brother's a licensed attorney. We've lost all three of our parents. My father, when my brother was 9 and I was 11, our stepfather in 2018, and our mother unexpectedly passed. I mean, she wasn't super young, but it was unexpected in November of 2021. And hers is one we can focus on today, in that there's so many things I wish we would have talked about. That both of us, my brother and I, as licensed attorneys, didn't have her do or get done or work out with her, even when she hit 75. You know, she passed not long after she was 77. It's kind of like, well, wow, what did having two attorneys as kids do for you? We did not have everything lined up. Now, she was smart in a lot of her affairs, and getting her finances and all of that was laid out with her wealth management team. However, some of those details about certain items, her valuable jewelry, she has so much jewelry, you know, who should get what, what's even real, what's fake, what were some of the beading items that you made when you went through your beading stage, and should we give these specifically to some of the cousins or whatnot. I mean, so many conversations I wish I had had with her, Carla, that now I'm just kind of hoping she's okay with some of the decisions we're making.
Well, and it's so one thing I want to make mention is you giving Pat the compliment of being a novel, reads like a novel. You're a best-selling author yourself. And I that is just a huge compliment. You've written how many books now?
Well, I've written one book. It's in its third edition. I'm working on the fourth edition of it. And eventually we'll write some others. But yeah, you're very kind. You're very kind.
Yeah.
But you know, the thoroughness, and that's the thing. She compiles dozens of stories of people who had lost military families, men, women, people who lost children. I mean, you name it, the loss is in this book. Well, and the sadness, but she turns it around for us by giving us so much useful information.
And I can't wait to read it. And I can't wait to delve into that, because two things you've mentioned. Now, I had mentioned in the description, you've lost 3 parents, and in the last not even 3 years, a little over 2, it's coming up on 2 for my mom next week that she passed, and it'll be 3 in June for my dad. One thing that you mentioned, she said, like with my dad, my mom was sick. I was taking care of her at the time. We knew dad was dying, and by the time we found out on a Sunday, he died the following Friday. And we knew we didn't have much time. And I was trying to organize everything and get hospice and family and update Caring Bridge. And and what I realized is everybody came to see him and did that whole last emotional moment with him. I never got that moment. Just like she said, you know, she was spending so much time and trying to save him. She didn't do the other thing with my mom that I realized that you were just talking about is my mom also had some like really interesting, yes, I did have a lot on my plate. I had so much, she had different things, and I never asked her some of the stuff, where it came from, who it should go to. Well, she had been unconscious for a while, and all of a sudden, kind of a miracle, that last hurrah, she came to. I had like a day, and I did, Mom, what was this? Who gave this? And I was writing notes, and I kept them all. And I'm so thankful.
Well, good for you for even thinking to do that, Carla.
Yeah, because I kind of panicked when she all of a sudden went unconscious, because she'd been sick for so many years. I'm like, why did I wait 27 and a half years or 12 years and 2 months with metastatic breast bone cancer? I knew the end would come eventually. Why did I wait so long to ask all these questions?
And, you know, it's not even like you're in denial, because, I mean, I'm certainly not afraid of death. I, lost my father 3 weeks before I turned 12. If anything, I've learned a lot from, by the time my mom died, losing my father, and then my stepfather, who she remarried 10 years later, my stepfather. But it's more that you're just living life. You know what I mean? You're just
Right.
living life. It's not, some people are denying death, but I think a lot of us are just living life.
Mhm.
And, and I even know there's not some history of longevity in my family. So, I mean, I thought she'd at least make it to 80. So maybe I would have started thinking about things around 79 and she passed at 77. So I can kind of laugh about it now. It's not a laughing matter, but just
I
like
get it.
we sit there and we make our New Year's resolution or
Right.
we plan a birthday party. Why don't we think about moving forward if we have a loved one? I don't care what age. Decide that you're going to have that extra thing as you're planning the birthday card. Maybe this is the year I sit down and ask mom or my spouse or even my brother,
Mhm.
what do you want about
Right.
X, right? And
Yeah.
it just becomes a natural thing in the natural course. It shouldn't have to be a big deal. It's not about greed. It's not about money. It's really about the wishes. And two of my favorite parts of
Mhm.
Pat's book, and I think we can all take as big lessons, big aha moments. One is this idea of an intention letter. So this
Oh,
doesn't even have to include lawyers, although you should have lawyers. You should have a trust, an
right.
estate plan in place and a will. But this intention letter could just be something you type up or handwrite and really telling your loved ones, this is what I want.
Mhm.
That my favorite vase or my horse. Here's who I want to have it. And
Right.
so there's no doubt. And then sign it, get it witnessed, whatever. That's what I'd recommend as a lawyer. Just get it witnessed, date it.
Mhm.
And that intention letter can also be a place where you tell your loved ones how proud of them you are, how much you love them, things like that. So in their really rough moment of grief, you're gone, they're reading this, it will bring them comfort. The other, which was completely new to me, a
Yeah.
death doula. You
I
hear
have
about
heard.
birth doulas.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is revolutionary. In my mind, it's revolutionary. I think we should all look for a death doula. In Pat's book, there are some resources and some help in finding one in your area. I mean, and they just kind of hold your hand through this, ask you the right questions, and I think it's the way to go.
For those who aren't familiar with a death doula, explain what that is.
Well, my just kind of quick Cliff Notes version is someone who has some training in end of life issues and
Yes.
can help you, as we would say in the law, issue spot.
Mhm.
Is this a situation that's going on that is definitely terminal? So, as the death doula, I need to really counsel them to say their goodbyes, to get that intention letter written. Or is this no, it's just help them stay strong and urge this, that, or the other thing. These are some of the things that a death doula can help with. And one thing that was really neat to read about, and whether you're a spouse or you're a
Mhm.
caregiver for a child, a parent, a sibling, is to really ask, would your loved one want you to be the one giving them 24/7 care?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
chances are they'd say no. Chances are they'd say, if we can afford it, hire it out or
Mhm.
hire
Mhm.
out someone to watch me at night or whatever. And because if you're a spouse, that person wants you to be a spouse until the end of their life. They
Right.
don't want you to be cleaning up their bedpan.
Right.
And I mean, some spouses are more patient than I. I don't want to be cleaning up my husband's deadpan or bedpan should it ever get to that. I'm sorry. I'm
Right.
not being selfish.
Right.
Like the thought of it just disgusts me right now while
Well,
he's very much alive.
and good
So
point that you
yeah,
know that, Roshini. A lot of
yeah,
people don't, and they think my folks wanted me to, and so both were in home hospice. I did all that, but I wanted to.
yes, it's
Yeah,
your choice.
and they
That's the
wanted me
thing.
to. Yeah,
They had the intention. You talked about it. They wanted you to.
exactly. Yeah.
You are a much better daughter than I am,
No,
Carla.
no, no, no. What two things that you said that I have seen, well, one in particular, online that was really cool. So my folks, ironically, had just updated their will from 1994 in April 21st when my dad passed June 12th. So I keep wondering, like, did he know something was up? But the family attorney connected us to a doula, And the other thing she did, I wasn't allowed to be in the room. It was during COVID. They came to the home, but she recorded it, video recorded their wishes, and she kept them private just in case. But one thing that I saw someone do on, and they showed it on Facebook, is the final will. The when the person was alive, did a video to their loved ones.
Oh, that's
You know, I
lovely.
want you to have this. This is why I want so and so to have this. This is why I love you. I'm proud of you. And when I saw that, I thought, now that's a cool idea as well. I had my folks on as guests for their 75th birthday, kind of talking about their life because they both had such incredible lives. So I have that for the grandchildren, for the younger kids that
And
maybe.
that's such a special memory. I'm so glad you did that.
Thank you. I wish though that I had them, you know, even if I wasn't in the room, just like hit record and had them say things, you know, that were different. That versus, you know, these were my wishes, or, you know, one thing my mom did do in the very, very end before she passed, she goes, I need to talk to you. And I was like, I'm right here. And she grabbed my hand. She said, thank you for everything. You are the best daughter. And, you know, I was like, you're welcome. You were the best mom. And just I was able to have that moment with her that I did not have with my dad.
Well,
So,
and it's the shared stories that you're not aware of from their past or certain parts of the history that is so nice. And, video and audio really give us a tool. They give us tools to remember these stories. We were with some friends the other night and we were talking about case file number 33. And the husband of this couple said to me, he lost his mom when he was young. His father eventually died. So one of his uncles was kind of the last connection. And then once that uncle died, because he was thinking, oh, I need to record the uncle. I need to record the uncle. And he died before he could do that. So he said, well, what went with, that last sibling of my dad's is all these stories that I'll
right.
never know, or going through photos and asking, what is that from? Those kinds of things. So I really recommend that everyone do that in your own way, whatever's authentic for you.
Hmm.
There's the sentimental, which is that, but there's
Right.
also the real practical. Everything will, if there is no will in place, it goes to what's called probate. And that doesn't have to be a nasty word, but it's kind of become that.
Yes.
So the more you can keep your family and loved ones out of probate, or at least the majority of your estate out of probate, the easier it is, the less expensive it is. And so what you need right now in life is just to find a good family lawyer, especially a good estate and trust and estates attorney.
Hmm.
And the good ones will tell you if they're the right one or not, and they'll help
Right.
you find the right one. So
Yes.
that, in combination with a really good financial advisor, just like you'd have a good doctor, you've had a family doctor most of your life. When you have a surgery, you go to a specialist. These are specialists in what they do.
Right.
And as much as there are things online, I would say, and I'm a licensed attorney myself, I
Yes.
went, trust and estates was my favorite class in law school. I would never write my own will. So those documents online might
Oh.
maybe give you an idea. They help you assemble and collect some documents. But
Hmm.
I'm not just saying this because I'm a licensed attorney. I'm telling
Right.
you it because I will not write my own will, even if I know how to. You really can't be objective and as thorough as you need to be for yourself and your family. And
That's a
then when it
great
is
point.
objectively drawn up and you then have a little meeting with whomever matters, is it your children? Is it someone
Hmm.
else who's getting something from your estate? Really have those conversations and don't leave that to chance.
Well, and I know not all attorneys are created equal, just like any profession, but you're a creme de la creme in your professions of both on air and then and what you do behind the scenes. I was lucky through Make a Wish in my media partnership. I met Tamara Block, who was her business development vice president of business development at the time. That's what she does. She had gotten close to my folks, so when it came time, they're like, "We want Tamara Block." Who now has become, since my folks have died, like part of family. She's my emergency contact, being kind of I guess an orphan, if you will. I have a brother, and we're close, but it was just really nice to have her manage it. And my brother hadn't been around us as much. He is now around me, but he even walked up to her and gave her a hug after both my folks had passed. So that tells you something. You know the person's done the right thing. They're honest. They care. She actually cares about me. My folks have been gone, like I said, and she checks in on me. In fact, she just sent me a text this morning. I'm really busy, but I know you're going on a cruise and I don't have your itinerary. Make sure you send it to me.
Wow.
She
That's
still,
amazing.
and she told my
Mm.
mother and father she would do that, and she's held her word.
That's what's so important. And your viewers can certainly drop me a line. We're on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at The Crisis Files. And they can send me questions, either open messages or direct messages, and I
Perfect.
will send answers. My crisis squad and I, one of whom is a practicing attorney. I'm an attorney, but I don't practice. I use it every day. But
Yes.
from between me and Steve and our team, we can definitely answer your viewers' questions on this, because it is definitely a specialty area as far as just dear to my heart. And if
Mhm.
I can save people from some of the pain I went through. And another note, and I get into this in case file number 33,
Right.
I have now written 2 obituaries for, of the 3 parents I lost. 2 of the obituaries I wrote for the newspaper. And that is a very hard thing to do when you're in the stage of grief, the first stage of
Yes.
grief.
Right.
And it's a combination of your grieving, but you also want to get it right. So based on now having to do that the second time in 2021, I suggested to all my aunts and uncles to write a draft of their obituary,
That's
share it
really
with their
great advice.
children, my
Mhm.
cousins, go
Mhm.
over it, every year or so, update it if you need to. But that backstory, no one can tell the backstory as well as you. Your kids can't. So I
Right.
can only hope I got some high level sense of it when I
Right.
wrote it about my mother and my stepfather.
Mhm.
But we know the essence of what we know about you, the decades that we knew you, right? So that is one of the biggest gifts every one of your viewers can do for the people who love them, is to write your own obituary. It sounds morbid, but you know what? It's celebratory. Have fun. It doesn't have to be like the obituaries in the paper. I got very creative with mine.
So did I.
My
I wrote mine.
stepfather, great sense of humor. I made sure that was infused into
Yeah.
his back in 2018.
That's such a great idea. I ended up writing both of my parents as well. I was a little unique. Many of my viewers know that I took care of my parents in the home for almost 8 years. So I did live with them. We did everything together. We traveled together, went out to dinner. They were my roommates. They were my family, being single, not married, no children. So for me, the void was big, but it also allowed me to probably be able to write or have a little bit more of the essence of the back history of both my parents, of what I know they would have wanted. And my mom approved my dad's. And then we did talk about my mom's. And I had her not only pick out her own urn, I also had her approve and proofread her obituary before she died.
That's wonderful, Carla. I'm so glad that you gave each other that gift,
Yeah.
actually.
Thank you. Thank you. And let me ask you, and forgive me, this is probably very sensitive, but you lost a father when you were 12, and you lost a father then later on in life in 2018. What was harder for you, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's that's a tough question because your own father, and I was very much a daddy's girl. It
Yes,
was, I was it was 3 weeks before my 12th birthday. I mean that was probably the toughest moment of my entire life,
I
for
bet.
sure, up until that point. But one of the worst days of my life, and probably the most pivotal event in my life, was losing my father before I turned 12
I can't
and
imagine.
watching my mother become a widow at 38. So that was a significant life moment that nothing else can really match. And as sad as it was to lose both my stepfather in 2018, he was 74, and then my mother in 2021 when she was 77. And of course, I wish they were both still here.
Right.
We At least they got to see decades of our life. We get to see decades of their lives.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of sadness, a different kind of
Very.
sadness.
Well,
Mhm.
and the reason I asked that is I remember meeting you years ago and knowing that about you in my heart. I thought, gosh, 12 is a turning 12 is such a hard age anyway. And then, so I had that empathy, but not until I lost my dad did I think about that moment of you, like people like yourself, because I have a few like yourself that have lost a parent or two when they were young. And you're thinking, oh, wow, I'm 55 and grieving this immense amount of grief and pushing through. Like, how does a child wrap their arms around that and go on? It's just, I guess it makes you really have a different outlook and understanding of it, different empathy.
Well, and the other thing, my brother and I have talked about this is, as we grew and became adults, it really does make you value every day. So,
Yes.
we celebrate the moments. We celebrate
Mhm.
plain moments in life, and we celebrate people's birthdays, and it it is the kind of thing where, what are you doing in the now? And whenever it is that I die, I don't want you just showing up for my funeral
Mhm.
if you haven't been there during my life, right?
Right.
So, and that's another thing. I mean, I've already told my husband, my brother, my sister-in-law, I don't want a church funeral. I want a celebratory event, kind of in the ilk of an Irish wake, even though that I'm not Irish, but my stepfather was half Irish, so we did a combo with his burial. We did more of an Irish wake, and a couple of weeks later, we actually had his funeral.
That's
And
cool. That's really a great idea.
yeah, so but I've already told everybody that is going to probably be part of it. Like, this is what I want. There will be no church. There can be toasts. I want partying. That's what I want. So if I've really got on record on that. So if I
Right.
die and something is happening in the church, that will not. I'm telling it to you right here on your show.
Okay.
Um,
I will remember that, I promise, unless I go first. But, my father was sort of the same way. And when he died, it was during COVID. He did not die of COVID. And I'm so thankful for media peoples and people and colleagues. Jordan Leopold and his wife and family reached out. They own Mississippi Gardens and said, "Hey, we got you." Well, because then they could open it, but you could only have, I think it had to be under 150. We had 125 people there in person, and that's exactly what we did. More of a celebratory, and we had over 2,000 online watching it. And
nice.
and sadly, the gentleman who grew up with my parents, he was a sandbox buddy who was a pastor, a reverend, just passed away a week ago Saturday, and his funeral was Monday. He had pancreatic cancer, and it went quick, like Pat's husband, if that's what you recall correctly.
Yeah.
And I got a letter just a few weeks ago, and I left a voicemail and sent one back, but yeah, it's too late. And so it's another one of those, if there's someone you think you need to reach out to, or you feel like, hey, I need to get together, don't put it off, because tomorrow might not happen.
Exactly. It's
It,
especially good to think about some of those people that, for whatever reason you had a fight a long time ago and you really don't even remember what it was about. That would be a good person to
right.
reach out to and clear the air. And, don't get me wrong, I'm Catholic. There will be something religious connected to my last days, but
Yep.
I really want it to be more of a celebration of life, because that's how I have lived. And as a
Yeah.
direct result of losing our father at a young age,
Mhm.
we really do celebrate life moments. And that
Absolutely.
that's kind of a theme in my life.
Well, and I love that about you, and I've noticed that, and agree. We're a lot pretty like-minded, and even with my both my parents, they both did want a little bit of that church piece in there. Mom's, it wasn't a church, but it was a celebration of life too. Dad's, it was at Mississippi Gardens, but we had the pastor there. And we did the military. He was a Vietnam Navy veteran, a very proud American, very proud of serving his country. And I made sure, well, I had help. I mean, there's so many people that come out of the woodwork to help you. That's the other interesting thing. Not only are we not always prepared, both for ourselves and for others, I find the people you don't expect show up. I had that person show up, Patty Sagert, if you're watching, helped me clean my mother, help me do the things that you've just said. I don't want to be doing that. And most people can't. When I'm on the phone getting hospice to come over, she's like, put down the phone, I got you. Those are the people you don't realize, like, this is not your parent. You're like, are you sure? And then there's the people sometimes you wonder, like, well, where are they? You expect certain
Yeah, and I mean, and don't be afraid to ask for help. That's the thing.
good
And what
advice. Yes.
what I've learned is, I will never say when someone has passed, let me know what I can do.
Right.
If they are a friend and and I don't feel like they'll be upset by it, I try to be the one that calls and checks on them, texts them, make plan for coffee or lunch, get them out of the house, because I really appreciate the people who did that for me without me even asking.
Well, and you've been that person for me, so thank you. Back to your, the podcast and Pat and some of your guests and what they shared on this topic. Was there anything that we didn't cover from what you think is really relevant and important for our viewers to know or should be thinking of that I haven't asked?
Well, I mean, there's so much in case file number 33. So I hope people listen where they get podcasts, look up the Crisis Files or at thecrisisfiles.com. Our conversation today, we're really touching the surface. There's so much there, but really it's being intentional with life so that when death comes, and we really don't know, most of us don't know exactly when death will come.
Mm-hmm.
You can have as much say about your legacy and what you want with, your material possessions, as well as your sentimental possessions, as well as just your feelings and thoughts. You want to be the one who writes that narrative. Right. Don't let someone else write it for you. So it does take intentionality right now during life. And it doesn't have to be an ugly,
right,
taboo topic. I mean,
right.
Make plans to have a family dinner. Make plans to talk about something in general that gets more specific. And the more if you happen to be a parent or an aunt or an uncle, the more you or an adult friend that a younger person trusts, the more you're able to have these conversations without adding stigma or taboo, the more they just become very mainstream. And that's what I hope I can help do as part of my mission as host of the Crisis Files, is all the topics we get into on the Crisis Files, and especially death and tougher topics, that they're just topics. Let's talk about them. Let's dissect them. Let's take the mystery out of them.
Let's avoid a crisis.
Let's avoid a crisis. Thank you. Very well said.
Well, and nobody wants to talk about sex, money, or death. But
we talk about all those things on the Crisis Files, Carla.
Well, there we go. I have to read one of someone who's been online with us this whole show. This is so good. My children, as we speak, are reeling as their father has just been diagnosed with cancer and has nothing in place. He's in Rochester. Everyone's scrambling. She's been also saying throughout this show, good idea. A lot of people are taking notes, and they're so thankful for what you're sharing and all of your insight. What else haven't I asked you that you thought we needed to get across on this show?
Well, thanks, Colleen, for, first of all, watching today and for these great questions and comments. Make sure you find time with your children to hug them and to say it's going to be okay. And there are resources out there. I don't know where you are geographically, but feel free to drop me a line. I'm happy to connect you with some. I know you mentioned Rochester. He's in Rochester. Well, I mean, that is such a great place to be as far as medical. There are a lot of great attorneys and financial advisors in that town. If you don't have anyone there, let us know. But otherwise, I am guessing through your network, you can get connected. But first and foremost, it's that your children talk with their father. Make sure they get some of those last quality conversations. Some of those simple things like, Dad, do you want to be buried or cremated? I mean, now's the time to get it right from him.
Do you have a healthcare directive? Do you have, emergency contacts?
Or what do you want us to do? Like, now might not be just at least get the wish. This is what I want. I want to be cremated. I don't want to be on life support, or I do want as much as needed to keep me alive. I mean, verbalize those things if he's still able to verbalize. Get it on paper as soon as you can, but at least get the answers while your father is healthy and cognizant and can talk with you, and have some of those last special moments. Maybe record some thoughts for future generations to hear from your dad.
Such great advice, power of attorney, healthcare directives, medical emergency, being on, and that's easy. All you have to say to your medical team, your doctor, this is one of my emergency contacts. We called ourselves the Berlin team, and the three of us would come, for everything. And at first people are kind of put off by it. Oh, here comes the Berlin team. And they joke. Well, some of the nurses and people are still some of my dearest friends today, because then they realize, no, this is a group. This is their cheering section. This is advocation, and it wasn't mean or whatever. It was just taking notes. All three of us could leave those devastating appointments of diagnosis, get in the car, and all three of us heard something different.
But
Yeah.
get a hold of Pat's book before all is said and done.
Yes.
Watch case or listen to case file number 33. Death Does Not Become Us. We get into many topics that all ages can really benefit from, and the legal and the financial and the real practical. So I really hope that your viewers got a lot out of today. We shared a lot of content, but also go to thecrisisfiles.com. There's a lot of great information there.
Yes, please go to thecrisisfiles.com. For those, we've got a lot of people online. For those that were tuning in halfway through, Roshini Rajkumar, very well known on-air personality in town, also a licensed attorney. The Crisis Files podcast number 33 dropped yesterday. Death Does Not Become Us is the title of that. And it really delves into many of us are not prepared for death. Meaning we don't have our affairs in order, but just even emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, we've kind of touched on the realm of it, and you can't be prepared enough. I mean, and I know it's hard to think about those topics. Like I said, nobody wants to talk about sex, dying, and money, but it's important. They avoid a lot of crisis moments and a lot of tense moments with family and issues that can come up down the road.
Right. And so all the topics can be found at thecrisisfiles.com, all the different case files, also where you get your podcasts, all the different platforms. But one thing I would say, maybe leave your viewers with this is,
yes,
after listening to our conversation today, watching us talk through this, obviously, sadly, Carla and I both have a lot of experience with death, losing all of our parents, 5 parents among the 2 of us.
That's a lot.
If you were to leave this earth tomorrow, what would you be leaving on your loved one's laps? It's a good question to think about. And all we want to do at the Crisis Files is help you with that and prevent the crisis that Pat Miles lived through, that many of us lived through. And I would say I wasn't in full crisis mode, but there are so many things I wish I had asked my mother during life. And when you listen to the case file, you'll hear what I'm now able to find humor in about cremating her versus burying her in a casket, which was never something I thought I'd be talking about, on your show, on my show, but was reality, and it would have been wonderful to have talked more about it with my mother during life. So,
right.
I think eventually you do find humor in a lot of things, but let's try to prevent the sadness and the grief, at least to the extent we can, by taking control of things while you are living.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things I can look back now, like you just said, and giggle, but, and my father changed. I mean, there was one point where he did not want to be cremated. My mom did. I knew they would both end up together at Fort Snelling, but he changed his mind as later in life. And then putting him in the columbarium wall versus in the ground. I didn't even know that was an option. I mean, there's just so many things, and I try to.
It's a business. It's a multi, I don't know, trillion, billion. It's a big business. Death is a big business. Don't let it take more from you than you really should, right?
Right. Be prepared. You can't, and I know if you don't understand what we're saying, reach out to Roshini, reach out to a licensed attorney, and start asking those questions, like the Tamara Blocks of the world. Thank God for her. I was so overwhelmed when it was done, even though they had their ducks in a row. I'm like, now what? And you know what was the worst for me? And then we'll close out on any last things you want to say, was their timeshare. Of all things, that was the nightmare of all nightmares for me. And that should have been the easiest, because I actually was already co-owner. Should have just been get their names off. Oh, no. So, you just never know. And you try to roll with it, but sometimes, you're sad. The last thing you want to do is deal with someone not being empathetic and not helping you get through the state or whatever topic you have. So,
and keep in mind, those of you out there who have children who have divorced and remarried, make sure your previous son or daughter-in-law is not in your current will.
Yes.
Because I have also heard those kinds of stories when the wrong daughter-in-law is getting all of the late mother-in-law's jewelry. So
yes.
Everything
had a
happens.
mother who was very adamant about things like that. And so I understand. I totally, that is so funny you bring that up as well. And what else have I missed? I mean, I know we've covered a lot.
You haven't missed anything. I mean, you could talk about this for hours. So
Hours,
you've
yeah.
missed nothing. I just
Yeah.
highly recommend people go to their favorite podcast platform, look up the Crisis Files for all of our case files, or go to thecrisisfiles.com. You'll find them all there, plus some special video segments. We'll also put this show on thecrisisfiles.com too.
Great. Yes. So the Crisis Files podcast is on all podcast platforms. You can catch it there. I will also put the website in the link of this in the description when we're done. And Roshini, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come back on and talk about a topic that will affect us all, every single one of us.
That is for sure, Carla.
Yeah, so I just really appreciate you, appreciate your knowledge, expertise, insight, and hopefully helping all of us prevent a crisis. But I know you're there if we need you. So
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on, and thanks to all your viewers.
thank you. And everybody else, thank you for tuning in. I will be on a cruise next Tuesday in the sunshine. If there is a live stream available, I may check in with all of you. Otherwise, you will see me back the following Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Around Town TV Live. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
If you have any questions or comments or would like to be featured on Around Town TV, give us a call at 952-934-0006. Or to follow us on social media, visit us on the web at around-town.tv. And don't forget, Around Town Media can also provide you with award-winning professional video production, along with on-camera and voice talent for your multimedia needs.
Everybody goes there. I go where everyone is friendly. I go where I am known.